Looks like we're recording.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to the broadcast. We realized today,
just a few moments ago,
that this is we've been doing this for 6 months.
It's our 6 month. Is it anniversary?
I don't know if it's an anniversary. It hasn't been a year yet.
I'm not sure it's an anniversary.
No.
Or that it's even exactly 6 months. It's just we're about the midpoint of a full year of doing this.
Yes. It is a soft milestone.
This is episode 26, which would be halfway through
52 weeks.
52 weeks.
So if it's a soft milestone, does that mean it's like sandstone?
Limestone.
Can we carve it up?
Limes.
Can we, given where we live right now, the Permian mudstone?
The cracked, dry, aching Permian mudstone that has no mud in it.
Oh.
We're also going on 6 weeks of over 100 degrees temperature in Texas.
I think it might have been dipped down below that, but there has been almost no measurable rainfall for at least that long. Mm-hmm. So
there was a cold snap and it got to 97.
Right.
Oh no, there was measurable rainfall, but it was in tiny little microbursts where it destroyed malls and snapped off trees.
Well, that was the wind. Yeah. That wasn't rain.
It was
actually not a lot of rain without even that.
There was some, but not very much. It was very non-existent. So.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be this way for at least another week to 10 days. Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing any predictions of...
As I said earlier today on the boys' live stream, that I have survived 2 summers now in Texas, and I've decided I cannot go to hell because...
You've already lived there.
Because I currently live there, which means I'm going to have to practice being a nice person, which is not something I'm very good at, so...
well, you heard about the 2 Texans who went to hell, right?
Okay.
They got there and they're looking around and Devil's like, yeah, is it hot enough for you guys? They're like, actually, this just feels like a nice, cool spring day in Austin. And they're like, he's like, all right. Devil goes and turns up the thermostat, comes back and goes, and they're having a barbecue. Like, yeah, it's finally hot enough for, where we figured we'd throw some meat on the barbecue and just feed them while we're waiting to get in. And he's like, oh, this is... Texans, goes and turns it all the way down. Everything's frozen. Everybody, the demons are ice skating across the frozen lake in hell, and the Texans are throwing a party. And he goes, "What the fuck?" And they said, "The Cowboys won."
Okay.
Oh no.
So that's how we get out of this.
Saturday supper was at my house, and I put 2 chickens in the smoker. That was the core of the meal. Was I smoked chickens because it meant I didn't have to cook inside. And then the sides for that was salad 3 ways: potato salad, which I bought because, and a Greek salad, and I did a fruit salad.
Well, that sounds good.
So we had smoked chicken and salads because hot.
Because hot.
Mm-hmm. And there's people showing pictures of, don't turn your oven on, just go outside and put the eggs on the...
This was a woman who baked bread in her mailbox.
That was a joke, but yes.
Instructions on making lasagna in your mailbox, too. Throw it in before you go to work and then cook all day.
Who was it who baked cookies on the dashboard of their car?
I think that was in Phoenix, but you could do that this summer here.
It's just been very warm.
It's been very warm.
And weirdly hazy and aggressively cheerful.
Yes.
Cheerfully bright. So, and nobody to punch. You can't punch somebody for being this cheerful.
Nope.
So
you guys talking about the giant cocks and your road trip.
So we went off to San Antonio for Nauticon down to go visit with Rob Hampson and Chris Smith and Sandra Medlock and Rob Hampson had a signing at Barnes and Noble for his book.
We made Mona Lisa sign all of her stuff that was there too.
Which was so cute. She was adorable.
She just lit up. It was so fun.
But on the way, so Courtney and I have not explored that road before. We have not been down 183, which we went down to Austin and met Czech Wilder. And so it's like we just kept seeing giant cocks everywhere.
It's their
large metal roosters.
Yes. There's the 6 foot
I like that you kind of went up and then you expanded. It was just like, Large, no.
And we would drive along and just all of a sudden go,
Giant cock.
Giant cock.
Ooh,
But-
he's got a colorful giant cock.
It's given me an idea.
Uh-oh.
Because
Oh no.
my garden has died. I mean, this summer I didn't have an irrigation system set up. It was supposed to happen, and then things happened. So my garden has died, and I'm like, do I plant another garden? But now I have thinking that maybe I should just be that lady on the block with all the yard art.
See, we were thinking the same thing. Because Courtney and I share a house that it's kind of like,
It's a very witchy house.
it's Italianate brick, and it's painted yellow, and it's all overgrown, and it has a very Miss Havisham feel to it. With a spike of a snag tree sticking up in front of the yard, which our landlord will not cut down because God far be it from them to actually do maintenance.
Oh God.
So we were thinking that we put signs on it, pointing signs, with odd Clayton Mars,
Beetlejuice, Narnia,
Beetlejuice, Narnia,
Rohan.
Why not? And then grow a wisteria on it.
All the geeky. Well, the wisteria will cover up the signs.
Well, but I mean, the birds need someplace to perch too, and the wisteria would take a while for it to get up that far. So
And I think you'll do better in this area with trumpet vine.
Whatever it is.
Wisteria doesn't do well in this heat.
yeah,
We will let you
Does
come
well
plant
in
our
this
vine.
we do have woodpeckers that are living in the top of the snag, so it's like a little.
Yeah, it's a little condo.
Okay, so it's like our condo, and we've got the jungle on the other side of the house. So yeah, so why not? I mean, we need a cauldron out front.
We do.
Yeah,
And odd gnomes, not just gnomes, but like
like the
The weird
Tyrannosaurus
ones.
Rex
Yeah.
eating the gnomes.
Yes,
Yes.
and the gnome holding the claymore.
I mean, I have the cat eating the gnomes that is currently sitting on my bookshelf. That might get moved to the front yard so we can,
Why not? Because we are creative people.
we are.
And I'm gonna, if I can't keep things alive in the garden, I might as well do something with it. So it's
That
not
makes
just
sense.
brown. And now I understand why so many of the little old ladies in this area have all the plastic flowers.
Well, everything dies.
Right. So if you want a garden, plastic is the way to go. Besides which, this is the oil patch. Plastic is made from oil.
It's
So you grow plastic flowers in this area.
local wildlife. Local resources.
I may be a little too tired and silly.
It just, I don't know. Why not, right?
Right,
So,
right.
makes sense to me.
One of
So-
the many jobs I have done in my life, I used to do, I used to booth for, just at large trade shows, a garden company.
Yeah.
So my in-laws represented 6 different gardening type companies, and there were just 2 of them, so they needed people to run their booths.
Okay.
Okay.
And so I came in and took over the yard art booth
Yeah. Well, that would be fun.
because I could.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I put together, so they had a drip irrigation system that they represented, and then the yard art booth, and then so I could read directions, and they had the company had a specified planning guide put together. So okay, I could do that,
Yeah.
put together. And my favorite thing to put together and sell, because I sold so many of them, were the 6-foot tall gem flamingos.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the one curly Q one that I've got that's green,
Yes.
yeah. So it was those, but 3-dimensional, not flat, and they were taller than I was, and they had gems all over them, and then the tails either went down into like these big, massive metal curly Qs, or would come
I
up.
love this. See, I mean,
And-
we're like 3 blocks off of the serious competition
Mm-hmm.
decoration neighborhoods, right? That have 8-foot tall skeletons in their yard. But
Right.
they take them down. I don't see why. So it seems reasonable that we
Right.
should join in the
It just
endeavor.
being way over the top.
Yeah.
And I would give away, if someone bought one of those, I would give them the rum. So if anybody remembers the Travelocity rumming gnome.
Yes.
Okay, so we sold those. You could turn them on, and if you walked by, they would talk to you.
Oh no.
And so I still have one somewhere.
It's really fun to put outside a bar.
It is. And I had little pot picks. And so when someone would buy, because you couldn't buy just one, you had to buy 3 of them to display in your store. So every time they bought one of those, I would give them the roaming gnome. And little roaming gnome pick, here you go. They're like, what's this for? And I'm like, gift for purchase. Like, I'm not going to put this anywhere. I'm like, put it by your cash register. People will ask. And
You know, it occurs to me that, I know it's awful, but not everything has to be an anthology, but I was just thinking an anthology of the weirdest job you've ever had.
right?
Because that's like...
It's such a weird...
It's a weird job.
It is a weird job. Like, I did it
twice
twice a year. Twice a year. That was it.
It's
But, you know, it was like, it took, I spent a week selling stupid yard art with the Travelocity roaming gnome.
Actually, you know what that would be?
What?
Instead of making that into an anthology, with the lot of us, it would be really fun to have each of us write up a little thing on it and then use it for the newsletter.
You know, I think we should do that because I already know the title of my autobiography.
Oh.
I was a teenage chicken picker.
I love that.
I mean, Lord knows we've all had some really, and really, I was a teenage chicken picker. With this is not plucking the feathers. This is working in the barns, clearing the barns overnight before they got those really cool machines. Have you seen those machines?
No.
Okay, so it used to be you had a crew that would go in at night when all the chicken were asleep, and you had to reach under and grab a leg, go to the next one and grab a leg, and grab a third one, so you'd have 3 chickens per hand. Flip them upside down. By then, they woke up and spewed chicken shit all over you. You know, and then you have to get 3 in the other hand and take them out and dump them into the thing to go off to get butchered.
Right.
Now they have these incredibly cool farm machines with like these fingers, and they run it along the ground, and they just sort of gather up all the chickens into it. It's the coolest thing ever. And I will tell you, teenage chicken picker job is a real. There were people working there who'd been there for like 5 and 6 years, and I was like, This is the best you think you can do for a job. It was like a great incentive to get an education.
Yeah.
I was like 14 doing that job.
I don't know, the whole automated fingers now is like,
That's slightly creepy, but I can also be very cool.
You know what?
It is very cool.
Once we put this one up, I'm going to post a video of one of those cool machines.
Yeah.
Because the chickens are like, they're walking along, minding their own business, and all of a sudden this machine comes up behind them and goes, roar, and gathers them up. The chicken's like, what? I suppose it's better than being flipped upside down and suddenly spewing shit everywhere.
Well, I don't know about the spewing shit, but I used to, when I had to catch chickens for whatever reason, if you flip them upside down, they kind of go limp.
Yeah, well, these didn't. They would flap their wings like crazy, and I would smack them against the post to get them to stop. So, after 5,000 chickens,
you don't
that's
care
where
anymore.
you are.
Yeah, I know.
You just don't. They stop being human, and chickens are stupid.
Chickens are stupid and malevolent.
Yes.
So they're dinosaurs, and they still think
they are
dinosaurs.
pissed off dinosaurs.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're awful.
I had lunch with people who, when I would do these trade shows, I had lunch with the most fascinating people. And one guy was he was trying to talk. He was talking to someone about why it's really hard to do free range chickens in places like Montana and, you know, like northern where they get snow a lot.
Yeah.
He's like, what color are most of the chickens in your, you know, that you think of? Like, well, they're like white. He's like, what color's snow? He's like,
he's got a point.
and someone looked at him and goes, oh, he's like, yeah, so they're not free range, they're kept in a barn because you don't want to go into 6 feet of snow and try and find your chickens.
Well, that and chickens are jungle fowl. They're not really well adapted for cold weather. We had issues with chickens when we kept them in Alaska. They were kept in a barn in one of the sections of the barn was closed off for the chickens to live in. They weren't like in little cages, but the constant battle that we had with this little barn was that the goats lived there and the chickens, and I think we had rabbits in there too. I forget what all, but the cumulative body warmth helped, and but trying to keep the barn from freezing, and we had so Mom learned that certain kinds of chickens, most chickens, they've got the combs that stick up off their head. Well, that's a very vascular thing, and it will freeze off. They get frostbite and then they'll lose it. So there are certain kinds of chickens that have rose combs or pea combs that are just like smooth to their head. Those you don't have a problem with them freezing off. But we had chickens that lost toes, they lost their combs because it was just too cold.
Wait just a moment. Rainbow star, and now you know.
Yes.
Right? Well, it's like,
There was a tangent. Good job, guys.
it's just like, I heard him, like, I heard him having like an argument earlier about with this person. He's like,
Chickens.
No,
they don't go together.
you don't put, it made perfect sense to me, like, why you would not raise chickens in snow. And she just could not get it that, like,
All things can live outside.
oh, of
In all
course.
weather.
If they're, it's cruel to them. Like, you don't want them to
You know
freeze
what?
to death.
You know what?
Like, nobody likes frozen chicken.
Yeah, frozen chicken, not so good. Especially when you really want to cook the chicken and it's still frozen.
and the feathers are frozen
It's-
into it.
it's
Like,
just-
that's
yeah.
just.
How, from where we started, did we come to here? I just had a Katharine Hepburn line run through my head. So
No, I think
I just said I should pick chickens, and now look where we are.
We all have
I
big
think,
chickens.
and that's the thing though. So we all have these really wild jobs that
Totally
we've done,
bizarre jobs.
and I can absolutely imagine that Ian and Rita have them, and I know for a fact Jim does.
Yes, but Jim can't tell us any of them.
Well, yes, but
Except that he can just call up the Navy and rent a boat.
Jim
boats.
has done some things before he went into the Navy that he could write up, but this
Yeah,
would be fun
well,
newsletter fodder for.
Basket chairs, Jim. I don't do erotica.
I noted in today's live stream that he shifted the focus. Let's talk about restaurants.
Yeah, no, it's
So, yeah.
Anyway, weird jobs. We've had them.
Yes.
Yeah, we should
yes,
absolutely
have.
write those up for.
That's the weirdest job I've had.
I think we need to do interviews with everybody. And,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
With
like
all of our authors.
yeah.
well, part of it
Yeah.
too is just like, what is the weirdest job you've ever had?
Yeah.
You sold yard art.
I sold yard art. And
Yeah.
I dressed up in a skirt suit and wore high heels for 4 days in a row to sell yard art.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because we had to dress professionally in a very specific way, and Mim was 5'0", and so she wore heels everywhere and insisted that everybody else wear heels. And I'm like, you realize with the heels I am 6 foot, right? Like, I was taller than half of our customers.
I know I've had 47 different jobs.
I have lost count.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Of the ones that actually somebody paid me. It was like. But
Oh, I
yeah.
don't count those. I've just
Well,
lost
no,
count.
I've
even of the
had
ones that
a
pay.
lot of different jobs. So,
Yeah. I think that's a great idea, though. Interview for the authors, because interviews
That's
can
some
be
really fun
very.
folks, yeah.
Yeah, interviews themselves can come off very stiff if you are comfortable doing them,
Depends on how
and
much
especially
alcohol you
in
have.
text. Well, in text when you're having someone
Oh,
write
yeah.
out, they can come off. But I think that as we do the Substack and we want newsletter content, having our authors write up the weirdest job they ever had.
I think it's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
Because, wow, do we bring some weird stuff to the table?
Right, and I think most of our authors are equally as weird as we are, which I'm very proud of.
Yes.
And, you know, and in our latest book that's coming out this weekend, Jonna Explain, it comes out Friday, Ian talks about the whimsy that Racketeer Press brings to the world. And I think we all just start in a place of whimsy and absurdity, because I think a lot of us have been through a lot of awful stuff. But at the same time, there's just the weirdest shit that happens.
Like, you know that in about 5 minutes this is going to be funny, but right now,
Well, I mean,
Well, black humor.
yeah.
I mean,
well, okay, so I would just say that between all of us, we've had some really strange and odd experiences. And that people are like, you did what? I mean, the whole deer head on the top of the deer head story, you know, they hit a deer
oh no.
on the side of the road, so they have Rita singing opera with this deer head with a hat on and a cigarette in his thing.
Dawn wrote that up.
I know.
It's in the
Yeah.
Hunting Stories
It's in the
anthology.
Hunting Stories anthology.
And apparently it's used as training material for that particular county in Colorado.
Yeah.
And hearing the story told by 3 different people who were there in different.
Well, we had Jim and we had Kelly and we had
Ian.
Ian. All 3 told that story together, and people were like, no wonder people think we're weird.
We are weird.
We are.
It was great to hear, because hearing one of them tell it, like,
Yes.
okay, like, this is hysterically funny. Getting all 3 of them to tell their parts
Yes.
was
Yeah.
just the most amazing
be taped.
experience.
Honestly, that should be taped.
Although I'll be honest, that particular notion there I was panel, because I was a panel at Fantasy.
Was it a fantasy?
It was.
Oh,
They're like
okay.
they're looking around going, okay, who's gonna start? Who's gonna start? And Ian's like, all right, fine, I'll start. And he starts with the Wubba Wubba story. And and if you've ever had to follow Ian on a storytelling panel, the response of the person who comes next is always, "Fuck you." I have to follow that. Like, John Ringo did that.
Yeah, he literally was like,
I can't follow that.
Like, follow that. Make me follow that. So put it last.
But the nice thing is that they aren't like competitive about it,
Oh, no.
because last week the writing group met at the library, and I kind of got a pointed, "You're done with your class, so you're coming, right?" So I showed up to the writing group at the library, and Jim and I spent most of the hour for writing group just trading off telling stories, just bouncing off
fun.
of one another, telling stories about the Arctic. And it was, I don't know why we did, but the usual writing group format didn't happen because it was just a few of us. 'Cause there was like 5 of us, and so we just basically were swapping stories back and forth. And I mean, I wouldn't try to top Jim's stories. I couldn't
But you
possibly.
it leads you to the next.
Right,
You know?
right.
I
There's
think we take that
aspects of a
approach.
story that you can pick up and run with into something of your own experience, and that's
Yeah.
always fun. That
Isn't that
kind
fun?
of give and take.
Well, we kind of do that anyway. I think because we've all lived a life and have lived some very interesting and different lives. Honestly, I think just about everybody's an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Full of odd experiences that you would least expect
Right.
to come out of them. Some of them you look up and go, "What? We did what?" You know, and it's, "We did what?" So
Like, we did that at Nauticon.
yeah,
It was interesting that there were the table we were at. Everybody was either telling me a story, or I think everybody. Well, not me. I did not participate, but like everybody went, like it just kind of like
kinda
went
went
out
in
around, and
circles,
everybody
yeah.
was telling stories. And we were having a fantastic time.
well, yeah,
And-
just sharing life experience. So
No, storytelling storytelling existed before writing, before written fiction, and storytelling can be fiction. Storytelling can be just
Creative
the facts,
nonfiction.
and creative nonfiction. There's a good word for that. And when I was getting people to send me the hunting stories, that's what I wanted, was creative nonfiction.
yeah.
Not that you're going to send me a fiction story. I don't want Bigfoot or anything like that. But what I asked people to do is send me a hunting story that sounds like it could have been true. So, but I mean, I know growing up, I grew up with some masterful storytellers, and
Yeah, it's
just-
weird because my house was silent.
well, my cousins, my uncles, my
So I didn't have that.
grandfather, yeah,
Yeah, I grew up in the military, and we were just never. Dad was always gone. We were just home with Mom.
yeah,
We didn't have a storytelling tradition, so
yeah.
maybe that's why I like authors.
Yeah.
So
My mom's family does not sit around and tell stories. My dad's family did. So when my uncle would come over, I would get all the stories of when they were teenagers and raising hell together. My dad, who was very salt of the earth, you know, very appropriate,
Very grounded.
very grounded.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you did what? You got how much air in Grandpa's car? Like, and you're giving me a hard time for coming home with a ticket for going 5 over. Okay, no. I know how
Yeah.
fast you went in that car.
it is interesting, isn't
Oh.
it? I mean, just said everybody's an encyclopedia. Thinking about my grandmother died at 100, who lived a very colorful life.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother's grandmother's, my great grandmother, married 8 times. You know, ran the entertainment at a hotel in the 1920s in Shaniko, Oregon. And I'm like, these people were off doing stuff long before we had to worry about it turning up on the internet. So
Yeah. Yeah, not that that really seems to have that much of a chilling effect, given some of the things you see on the internet.
People have no shame. And sometimes I think that's good, sometimes I think that's bad. Like, you shouldn't be ashamed of certain things, but other things, like, really?
I think also, in some respects, we've gone to a visual storytelling medium as opposed to an actual... It's actually funnier to tell the story of the guy who went to step into the boat and the boat flipped out of the way, if you're a good storyteller, rather than just seeing the same picture over and over and over again, because you don't get the lovely embellishment from a lifetime of telling.
Right.
You know, where it becomes, you know, the boat goes even faster and the flip's even more dramatic and stuff. I mean, it's, in some respects, the constant sameness of the visual medium that we have with TikTok and with Instagram and those kinds of things, that I think, while the visual is okay, we lose the opportunity for someone like Ian with his turn of phrase to take something like that and turn it into an epic moment.
Yeah, because the words help a lot. But the other thing too is that a good storyteller, it's a full body experience.
Yes. I mean, I have been hurt by sitting and listening to Ian and Kelly tell stories.
But it's their facial expressions, and the way they use their
gestures,
hands,
it's definitely, and it's
take that, put it over here,
and it's a I mean, storytelling itself obviously has a very, very old track record, but even like initially movies and whatnot came out of vaudeville, which was to some extent storytelling and comedy, because we're kind of just specifically talking about comedic storytelling right now. Because dramatic storytelling, well, that's where we get opera and plays and stuff, but comedies have always been a thing too.
So my very dear friend Mark Lewis, who was a consummate storyteller, has had 2 Emmys from doing how to do storytelling on his PBS show, could rivet you in place with a dark and scary story.
Yeah.
Because he knew how to build the mood and the tension and use the use of sound effects, and then he could also hurt you with the very next story where you'd be on the floor. Just
ghost stories around the campfire.
Oh, right.
Is a lost. It really feels like a lost art.
It is a lost
because nobody does that anymore.
No.
Yeah.
It's that I know some people do, and it's
okay. We get ghost stories around the smoke pit at LibertyCon.
True.
Because the guys all sit out there and tell their
stories.
So
that also brings us to things like Welcome to Night Vale, and it's easier to do. My son likes a YouTube channel that's telling. It's kind of it's like the no sleep stuff where they're telling like creepy stories that could be true, and
you know what?
And
it totally ties in with our visit with Jack about podcasting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how that is the new storytelling medium.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, it used to be radio shows.
Yeah.
The Shadow knows.
Only the Shadow knows.
And I mean, because I was out of time for them, but we had a 1-hour study hall during high school, and oftentimes we used our 1-hour study hall. We would, those of us, I mean, because the classroom, I was in multi-grade classrooms, and there were never more than like 6 of us in the classroom. So we'd sit there during the study hall with the cassette player and play old-timey radio shows.
Like this big, and it has 2 holes in it. There's tape that goes back and forth, and you use a pencil to rewind it.
But one of the families in class had gotten these, like, it was this huge box full of, and it had a couple of dozen different radio show things in, and it ranged the gamut from the old, like, Dragnet was originally a radio show.
It was originally a radio show.
Just the facts, ma'am. And the Shadow, but also like the Jack Benny show, which was very comedic, and Red Skelton, and listening to those,
Victor Borga.
there is a whole craft in the vocal medium where you've got the sound effects, so you've got the voices, and they're telling you the story and really bringing it to life in your mind, illustrating it in your mind.
Well, which sparks the imagination. You know, I think we spoon feed too much anymore. You know,
That's been the argument against television from the
this
beginning.
damn thing was just television. It's always smart. It's like, get off my lawn. Get out of my living room. Put my radio back in there.
On the one hand, I think we do. On the other hand, I think it's the storytelling is always going to be a thing, and there are people who are using the new mediums to continue telling stories, and so it's changing. We're because you get a whole bunch of crap. You get a whole bunch of crap anyway. You get people who can't tell, who can't tell a story.
Was crap. So
we get people who can't tell a story to save their life because they don't understand timing. They don't understand how that works.
That is so true, especially in some panels.
Oh my
People
god!
think that they can tell stories as good as Law Dog and cannot.
But there's always been those people who just for whatever reason they cannot tell a story.
Yeah.
They try and they try their best to keep up, but it will never be at it falls flat.
Their talents lie elsewhere.
Their talents lie elsewhere.
Yes.
But I think we have people who are like they couldn't do it like this. They couldn't do it like this. They couldn't do it like this. But they have this new medium,
and it works there.
That's how it works. And so the way their creativity comes out is in the you get 45 seconds on TikTok.
Yeah.
And
watching Dylan Hollis do the vintage recipes.
Oh my god,
that is 50-word story.
Yeah,
they're doing 50-word stories on our TikTok.
Yeah,
yeah. But and that's
some of those TikToks cooking food. Oh my goodness!
Donut Daddy, thank you very much.
But this is the fun thing though, is like, and we're looking at this with AI, with specifically the graphic AI. Like I'm playing with MidJourney right now, but
right now.
Well,
I think you've had a long-standing date with these folks. You and Midge. I mean, we kind of lost you. It's like it's just like. Sanford should worry.
The thing is, though, that the way it's the speed it's progressing at,
it's astonishing.
Is we're going to see it be able to. You're going to be able to AI generate animation.
It's been a year in July since we discovered MidJourney, a bunch of us.
Yeah.
And wow.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No. I mean, I was looking back at my history and. It's come so far from the first images I generated August 12th. August 12th is when I paid for my initial subscription. And I've been playing with it a little bit before that on the free plan, but then I decided I was going to use it enough, and it has paid for itself, so it's well worth it for me. But the thing is that what's coming next is going to be that we'll be able to do full-on animation. And so I know that animators and artists and stuff are all like, we're going to lose our... But no, that's not actually what's going to happen. What's going to happen is that it's going to revolutionize the ability to do storytelling in a visual media, moving medium, because it's really freaking expensive to do that right now.
Oh, yeah.
So... And, like, my son walked into my office this morning and was like... somebody should send Son of the Black Sword, Larry Correa's fantasy. Somebody should send that to Netflix. And I'm like, it's the ability to create films from books. One of the big limiting factors is that it's really freaking expensive. If it gets to a point where it's affordable to be able to do that, because not everybody reads, but the ability to adapt really good stories to the visual moving medium opens up some really amazing opportunities down the road. And I think that, I mean, we're seeing it's revolutionizing stock art, because that's what I use it for basically now, is where I have bought stock art in the past. Now I'm using MidJourney in that instead. and it gives me the much more control.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, it's exciting, and storytelling changes and always has changed.
It does.
So,
I
new
remember the
technologies.
absolute terror that the typewriter companies felt when they got white out in a bottle because they
Yep.
couldn't make their self-correcting typewriters. Changed everything.
Yeah,
I mean, tiny little things like that.
yeah. When word
Changes
processors
storytelling.
came in,
So, yeah. Heard
not
everything
the
about this
weirdest job, but one of the weirdest things that I have done is I've actually been a puppeteer.
Yeah.
I was on the puppet team when I was in college.
People
the
accuse
first
me
time.
of being one all the time.
I'm just so good at pulling strings.
But for real.
No, it's just different. I was puppets, the whole hand up.
I mean,
But storytelling,
I'd like to do that too.
storytelling can be done in so many
It's
ways.
wonderful.
Yeah, and it's
Storytelling can be done with all three of us just going,
yeah,
something. The three different
communication. I'm not sure it's a story, but
Oh,
does
it's
it
a
have
story.
a beginning, a middle, and an end?
Actually, okay, so when all three of us give Law Dog a look,
There's an end.
there's an entire story. And he's like, it's okay.
Which is wonderful.
Yes.
Well, it's the people who can communicate through memes, because there are so many.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
It's a very specific skill.
a very specific skill, and it's a very specific type of communication. And it's
I
the-
miss the threads full of GIFs, the whole GIF war thing.
Oh my God, those were so
always
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, communication through the strangest mediums, and yet being human, we can understand one another.
Really? We actually understand one
Okay,
another.
sometimes.
Well,
Okay.
well, it's the babblefish, which or the babelfish. Which
Yeah.
allowed
Cultural differences.
the it translates any language to any other language, so everybody can understand. There's perfect communication, which led to the most words in the history of the galaxy, which I thought was just a brilliant. Douglas Adams was very.
He was uneven.
Yes.
He had moments of brilliance and then moments of really did that
Yeah.
that did not land the way you thought it was going to land.
Yeah.
You know what, though? Don't we all live our lives that way?
Oh yeah, no, not
Yeah.
taking away from it. I still,
It's just, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
He had a very depressive outlook on some things,
yeah,
but had just
Well,
moments
again,
of brilliant insight and
cultural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and wordplay. Like, you don't get descriptions, like,
So wordplay, and you alluded to this with the storytelling
Yes.
and the medium of the visual, the video, taking away from that.
In some
and
respects,
wordplay, which I mean, Shakespeare may have been the pinnacle of wordplay.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
May have been, yes. And
I think
certainly
he invented wordplay in a lot. And I think
Yeah.
he codified wordplay that had existed.
Yeah.
And
because it's in Chaucer too.
Yeah.
The Miller's Tale
oh yeah.
has,
But
Some-
what I,
but
what I was
in
going
terms
to
of
say is
Yeah.
that we don't see as much of it now in modern authors and mediums because the education isn't there.
No, because we don't study the classics anymore.
Right.
Nor do we, people can't seem to read more than 240 characters anymore, and their attention spans are very short. Which is why I think our anthologies are being so popular, is because they are long form writing.
Yeah.
Whereas it used to be, it took you 3 days to get through the first 3 chapters of what was it, the first 3 paragraphs of Moby Dick, or Tale of Two Cities.
kept falling asleep, couldn't help it.
Tale of Two Cities, it was like or any Dorothy Dunnett novel that you have to claw your way into it. And not a lot of people, but her writing is exquisite. Absolutely. And her storytelling is so huge and so chewy. I mean, people have lost, I think it's like, I think we go back and forth. I think
Yes.
it's like, that we have a hunger for simplicity because we've been so overwhelmed with complexity.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to simplicity and realize that it's kind of like chewing on rice cakes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we want to go back to the chocolate marble German cake.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we do this cycle through our societies.
Yeah.
And I think we're very much in a rice cake stage with with not having studied the classics. But I do see that there's a more of a rise of people wanting a deeper understanding of the universe, which is why we see the smaller colleges coming up that are more focused on the classics and digging into the Greeks and looking at the classical literature and going back to that when there's been so much push away from it.
Yeah.
So, and understanding also that the simplest tale can be the most complex and difficult. Anyone
Which is
who's
why
watched,
the 50-word stories are so difficult.
well, and it's like Jordan Peterson's doing the psychological approach to the Bible series,
Mm-hmm.
where he's astonished and amazed at how much information is in one small phrase.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because it is a condensation of 10,000 years of knowledge, in
Right.
essence, into the simplest form that you can tell somebody.
Mhm.
Which is like, that's the ultimate 50-word story right there. Right?
Yeah.
If you want to listen to his analysis of just trying to get through one page.
Yeah.
of,
Mhm.
and how much depth and complexity is in there. So I just think we're in a swing,
Yeah.
honestly.
And so a while back I did the Mad Genius post about small stories, and
Yes.
I had commented that I wanted to figure out what was being read during the Great Depression, because we're in an economic downturn right now. So for a marketing standpoint, I'm
Right.
like,
What,
so
what was there before?
Right.
Yeah.
What was popular then? So I found the Publishers Weekly listings of what the bestsellers were in the years of that era,
Oh, interesting.
which, I mean, it's a little more. Publishers Weekly is kind of the equivalent then. I think these lists are probably the equivalent lists of like the New York Times bestsellers. And we
Yeah.
know that that's a gamed, biased system.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at these and I'm like, some of these are on here because they had literary merit and everybody
Literary.
was supposed to be reading them. Reading the descriptions of some of these books, I'm like, yeah, nobody was reading that one for fun.
Yeah, so the question becomes, what's in the pulps?
Right,
And that's huge pull magazine
and I'm
timeframe.
going to have to, and then, well, that's what I think.
It's huge. Well, no,
Is-
talk to Deesh about that, because the 1920s and 30s
I know, I need to. I
were
just
unbelievably rich in
I've been
pulps.
poking at. This is going to be a whole research project. I can tell already, but
And off she goes.
just looking at the novels, that's what I was going to say, which is that I think the short fiction was where it was at as far as the escapist
Yeah.
stuff. Because looking at the novels from like 1930 through 33, because I wasn't familiar with most of them, which first of all was odd because I do read well back into the 19th century. And so I expected there to be some more classics on there that I recognized. And there are some that I recognize the titles I've just never read. Pearl S. Buck was very popular
Oh,
during
huge.
that time.
Absolutely huge.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen her books over the years, and I just never picked them up and read them.
Yeah.
So I've just been going through and just like reading the descriptions of these novels, and I'm like, okay, so the popular fiction was somewhere else because these aren't it.
Well, and if you think about it, we hadn't had the paperback revolution yet, so everything that was a novel was in hardback, which was being read by people who were not suffering from the economic downturn.
Yes,
So if you were going to get cheap literature, so this would be the people that we buy
this is
popular.
literally the pulps.
You're-
This
yeah.
is
Literally pulp
the
magazines.
pulp era. Yeah.
So we're looking at you'll be looking at a lot of westerns because a lot of the western novels started either serialized in pulps or were started like as like they included a short novel in this episode issue of the magazine.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're gonna get a lot of westerns. You're gonna get a lot of romance, but they don't.
Yeah.
And this I've gone off on this before. The romance pulps have pretty much disappeared
Oh, yeah.
because, and when they were doing, because they did drives. So the western, so for for magazines, people would put them on the bumpers of their car. They would buy and they recycle them for the war effort.
Yeah.
So when people were pulling paper and stuff like that, the women would donate their magazines.
Mm-hmm.
They would not donate their husbands' westerns.
No.
Wow.
They wouldn't get rid of anything that was considered, because stuff that they were willing to donate towards this.
Mm-hmm.
So children's children, anything that was meant for children,
Mm-hmm.
most of it got donated because the children had grown out of it.
Yeah.
Anything that was intended for women got donated. So there are almost no copies left
Yeah.
of the early romance pulps. We know they exist.
Yeah.
We know.
I have a. You've seen it. I used to have it hanging on the wall. Ranch Romances.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is both, and it
Yeah.
is romance stories. Oh, and I really need to take it out of. I've got it in that shadow box frame. I need to take it out and show it to you sometime because the ads in that are hysterical.
The ads are the best.
I actually bought it. I have
They're
a
the
couple that I
best.
got off of eBay and they're. I need gloves to touch them because they
Yeah.
are falling apart.
Yeah, they're
Um,
brittle. The paper was not acid free, and it literally
Oh, yeah.
shatters.
Literally pulp, yeah.
That's why I
Those
framed
pieces.
mine. Was
Mhm.
basically I bought them at a flea market for the covers.
Yeah, but we have a whole bunch of the Western pulps. We have a whole bunch of the noir and the mystery pulps
Mhm.
because
That was his.
They were kept. Yeah.
So they were saved, and she wouldn't donate them because she didn't want to get rid of his stuff.
Right.
But the romance pulps are almost entirely gone. You cannot. There are databases where people have scanned
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
other ones. Nothing of the romance survives. Some of the stuff that was collected into novels we've got,
Mm-hmm.
but there's an entire
Yeah.
line that is just gone.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I knew going into this idea of let me find out what was popular then, is that it was going to be difficult to do because not only do we have this big missing gap of the pulps were called the pulps for a reason and they fell apart and they got trashed or donated or whatever, recycled. So we don't necessarily have a preservation of those. The other thing too is that a popular book got read to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And whereas the book that never got read and just put on the shelf to look at, because I own some of those, I have a collection of H. Rider Haggard hardbound novels with the lovely little gold on red.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really pretty, sitting on my shelf, and I would be willing to bet that even though Haggard was a very popular author, he was a pulp author, most of those were serialized in magazines and then got collected into novels. Most of the ones that I have on my shelf right now, somebody bought that set and it went on the shelf and they never actually read it.
Right.
They were nostalgia. So, because Haggard was not then nor ever will be literary in any way, shape, or form.
It was fun.
Yeah, no, and that's why I bought them, is because nostalgia and because I enjoy Haggard.
Yeah, so it's a fascinating project, honestly. And Deja's minding this one a lot.
Yeah.
And Ben is a walking treasure. Ben Yallow is a walking treasure. We were talking about Ben, about how Ben, when Ben starts talking about it, you just kind of push the button and you just sit down.
Uh-huh. Well, I got him to tell me, I asked him what his comfort reads were.
Oh, fun.
And he actually wound up sending me an email with a list. He'd done a list for somebody at some point. And I went through and bought a bunch of, I haven't had time to read any of them, but I bought a bunch of books based on Ben's recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to ask Ben if we can publish that list.
I will, because
Yeah.
that would definitely be a great
I
one.
would love to see what Ben Yallow considers a comfort read.
Yeah, because he's like, these are the books that I go back and I read like once a year.
Yes.
He reads and rereads these same things over and over again.
Do you remember any of them?
Oh gosh, I know one of them is The Quiet Year or The Quiet Sun by Wilson Tucker,
Oh,
because I literally had it in my hand
Yes.
when I was organizing.
that's Bob Tucker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
I've
that is
got
a tremendous book.
I've got a bunch of them.
Really,
and a lot
his
of them
comfort list could be like, read this if you want to know what science fiction is. You know?
absolutely, the foundation of
Yeah.
really excellent science fiction.
That's another fun one too. We should be able to send us their list of comfort books.
Well, and I used to do the book lists and
Yeah.
put them on my blog.
I remember that.
And I stopped because with Facebook changing the algorithms,
Yeah.
I stopped getting as much response to those. But I would love to get to a point where I could do them again, where
Yeah.
we had enough of an audience. Because here's the thing with making a list of the top 10 classic science fiction. If I do it, it's what I like.
Yeah.
If I crowdsource it, then it's what everybody likes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was why I did the book list
But
the
I
way
find
I
it
did.
it's an interesting insight into what people enjoy is
Yes.
they tell you what their comfort books
Oh,
are.
absolutely.
You know, I mean, because, yeah.
Well, talking to Rob this weekend.
Rob
And-
Hampson, yeah.
Yeah.
It was charming, geeky 12-year-old.
Oh God, he is so much fun to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
But he talked about when he's writing, he reads a completely different genre.
Yes.
And we were talking about the genre that he reads, and I'm like, oh my God, like I totally understand
You guys,
why.
yeah, doing the same
like,
thing.
why he reads that, and then I realized when I'm in the middle of writing a romance novel, I am not reading romance.
No.
I'm actually reading through my pulp noir magazines.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going through and reading like the collection of 250 noir
Yeah.
stories while that's what I'm reading while I'm writing.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to read romance because I don't want to take their wording and put it into my story because it
Inadvertently,
just
yeah.
gets into my head.
Yeah.
So I read a completely different genre. And then when I'm reading romance, I'm working on something else, or it's I'm between stories and I'm refilling my creative well.
Yeah.
And talking to Rob about what he reads, like it's a genre that I never would have thought he would have even considered touching. I'm not gonna out him because I don't know if how much he's talked about it. But
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where like I get this, and it's like
Yeah.
so like there's the your comfort reads and your what do you do? Because I'd like to see both of those lists.
Yeah. No,
The
absolutely.
what do you read when you're working on something that's in your genre?
Right.
Okay, what's your go-to comfort book?
My go-to comfort book.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on why I need comfort, and that's actually
No, that's a
no.
good answer.
Yeah.
yeah. So it's actually my oh gosh, I'm not sure. Okay, I'll start with I do not believe in guilty pleasures. If you enjoy something, enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm-
Okay,
Do
right.
not eat or unearned guilt.
Right.
There's no guilt here. So,
Right.
So
But like your box of chocolates.
my box
what
of
is your
chocolates.
box of
Yeah.
chocolates?
Emma Hawley's third book in her Demons series, which is
Yeah.
the Demons Inferno, I want to say, because it's the Demon's Daughter, and then the Demon Prince, and then it's this one which follows different
Yeah.
characters.
So say the author's name again.
Emma Hawley.
Emma Hawley. Okay.
Yes. And this is a alternate world during Victorian era, except that there's aliens on the planet that that are in basically like Greenland-ish,
Yeah.
and they're actually book 8. This like you see like you get to book 8 and it explains some of where it is. Like, oh my God, that's why. Okay. She has this wonderful world building that you if you read it just for the smut and the relationships, it's wonderful. If you read it for the world building, you get to book 8 and go, I knew it. And there's a whole bunch of different short stories that go with it, and
Yeah.
so,
And
and
layered is fantastic.
oh, it's wonderful, and
Yeah.
it's one of my favorites genres because it's like Victorian. It's like Victorian and Regency, that era, and she keeps a lot of the what we would consider the fashion and the norms and a bunch of stuff like that, and she has a couple like little twists and changes here and there to make it work, but it's just fantastically wonderful, like an alternate dimension kind of thing. So yeah, Emma Hawley, except for some like 1 or 2 series, is kind of one of my comfort authors.
Yeah.
I know I can pick up one of her books and just drop into her world and know that I will enjoy where I'm going.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what's yours?
I actually think my comfort read is probably Busman's Holiday by Dorothy Sayers,
Oh, yeah.
because it's
Excellent book.
it's the fulfillment of this long, drawn out slow love story. And and she puts so much into this book that just makes you happy, because it's like, finally, all of these happy things. And it's, for me, I mean, it's a mystery and there's a murder, but mystery is my comfort genre, in British mystery in particular. Dorothy Sayers, Marjorie Allingham, and so Busman's Holiday is probably my comfort read, because it just always makes me happy. But when I want super light and easy reads, I go to D.E. Stevenson.
Oh yeah.
Still Glides the Stream is probably my absolute favorite of hers, and it's they're small, quiet reads, light novels, and it's a world that doesn't exist anymore. So it's like complete escapism of she was writing about Britain and Scotland that she knew, but that's a world that has totally been wiped off the face of the earth. It no longer exists, which sometimes makes me really sad. But I just love, because her books are just like a warm blanket wrapped around you. So, but now, what about you?
And two. Moon is a Harsh Mistress is always a go-to for me. Hands down, always a go-to. Because when I was 5, I thought that was where I would be when I grew up.
Yeah.
That I would be on the moon, and I'd be living there.
Yeah.
So that one's my, there is still hope for the future, and God damn it, you can get rid of oppressors kind of thing. But when I'm really, really down, I go to Callahan's.
Yeah. Because
I grew up reading the Callahan stories, and waiting and anticipating the next one, and it's one of those things that I read to go back to restore my faith in humanity.
Yeah.
When I'm feeling really like the world is horrible and awful and icky, horrible place, I go to Callahan's.
Yeah.
And usually the first series, I mean, when they go and open up Mary's Place and it moves on into that, at that point I'd already met Spider, so that has a different hit, and I know how the stories came to be.
Yeah.
From that. So for those that's when I kind of entered into the world of science fiction. So that end of the stories is not as important to me, but the concept of a place where any alien could walk in the door and it'd be totally okay and nobody would care.
Yeah.
And you could do a toast and break a glass and tell your story. And everybody cared.
Yeah.
Everybody cared.
The acceptance and community.
Well, it was a shared belief in a higher standard of behavior, which I think in some ways because I grew up in the science fiction convention space, that a lot of it was influenced by Callahan's and people wanting to create that kind of a space. So to me, it reminds me of a time that was and still can be. So those are mine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's like you, it kind of depends on why I want to be comforted, escape a little bit.
Yeah, and I do have some other comfort reads, but those are my two main ones.
Yeah, and so I think it and everybody's going to be different.
I know,
and like
cool?
different things, which is fun, and that's why I always love asking these kinds of questions and getting things from people, because I mean, first of all, you usually find new books, new authors that way. But secondly, it also is just like really interesting glimpse into how someone's mind works.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some really smutty books I read too.
Yeah.
Because they're fun.
Right.
So.
Well.
But don't we all?
Yeah. I mean, well, it's like got into a conversation on Saturday. So my big accomplishment over the weekend was that I've got my library in rough organization order, which makes me happy because I bought a duplicate book the other day and then realized it wasn't a cheap book. So I was like, frustrated with myself, and also I couldn't find things. So I got everything more or less organized. But one of the conversations Saturday supper, when there was a bunch of people there, was about the Louis L'Amours. Because
brilliant, right?
Yes, and I grew up with Louis L'Amour. He formed me in many ways. I mean, they're books, they're very masculine books, but I was a tomboy, so they resonated really well with me. And I read as many of them as I could get my hands on when I was a kid. And my husband really likes Louis L'Amour, and again, also credits him for formation of some of his things that he chose to be as a man
Yeah.
was because he had read about them.
It's very clear philosophy.
Yeah,
Very
and
clear
encountered-
principles.
Mhm,
Yeah.
very principled men and women.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a very large Louis L'Amour collection because until I introduced my husband to reading in ebooks and then being able to read on his phone, which is where he reads 99% of stuff now, he always had a paperback in his pocket, and it was usually a Louis L'Amour. So I was collecting Louis L'Amours because they're not that easy to find anymore, and they're expensive. Even the old pulp papers are because people like them and they hold on to them.
They hoard them.
I have a bookshelf you should look at.
Yeah, well, no, but that's what I'm going to get to, which is I have a bunch of the paperbacks. I have some of the leather bounds, the hardbacks, and the local library gave Jim Curtis the entire set of the leather bounds, which came to live at my house because Jim didn't have room for it, and I had an empty bookshelf at the time. So now I've got Jim's entire set and all of ours, and I'm like, I don't want to get rid of ours. And we're not reading in paper right now that much, so I actually use them as reference now.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but then we got into this conversation about Louis L'Amour and how repetitive he is, because one of the people there at dinner is not a fan. And I'm like, yeah, but this was pulp. He was writing rapidly, and he was writing to market. He wrote what people liked. And the fact that he resonated through generations of readers, he was doing stuff right.
Yeah.
And it's well worth studying what he did and how he did it. So,
Yeah.
Question came up in, I don't know if you saw it, it was a subsidiary of another question that was asked about ebook pricing.
Oh yeah.
I saw the initial
I saw that,
question.
yeah.
The secondary question was about length.
I did see that.
And I had commented that 60,000 words was perfectly acceptable as far as length. And then somebody else had said that they had been told that it wasn't worth writing anything that was less than 100,000 words. And I'm like, wait, what?
This was a question that was in the Writer Dojo.
No,
No,
I believe
this
this
was
was
in North Texas.
Supplement.
Yeah.
Because
So
getting
then
some
I-
really interesting questions. So.
Yeah, so then I had mentioned that pulp novels usually go 40 to 60,000 words. And that's right now with indie authors writing pulp lengths. And one of the guys was like, I could write 40,000 words in a week. Can you give me some modern examples of this? And I'm like, sure. Jerry Boyd's Bob and Nikki series.
There you
Most of
go.
those books are between 40 to 60,000 words. You can tell by going to Amazon and looking what the page
Yes.
count
Yeah.
list is. And I know
And
what...
that's a whole discussion.
That's a whole discussion we're not going to get into today, but short, punchy novels are viable.
Oh,
I've been-
hugely.
I've been reading through a bunch of werebear novellas, just because that's a genre I go to when I like my werebears.
Cuddly werebears.
Yeah,
I get it.
It's yeah, because they're all focused on food and
And honey.
and honey and oh honey.
Oh, honey. Oh, honey.
But
Intonation's so important.
it really is.
Yes, it is.
But I'll open them up, and I know I'm not looking for novellas, but like most of the werebear stuff becomes in novella length, and I open it up and says it's going to take you 2 hours to read. I'm like, okay, cool.
Excellent.
Like this one's 3 hours. Why is this one 3 hours? Oh my gosh! Well, we're introducing 2 new characters. Okay, so that's but I'm going through these novellas, and they're 25, maybe 30,000 words,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
And that's that's just kind of how that part of the genre works, and I don't understand. You must write 100,000 words, and
Yeah,
I understand
that's-
where it comes from.
You know what?
That's
No. You know what? I'm gonna stop you right there. Do you know
Okay.
what that is?
That's another topic.
That's
That's
not
another
only
topic.
another topic, but that's a demand that people conform to your idea of how something should be.
Yes.
That's a gatekeeping Star Wars comment. you know, it's like, it's only a novel if you write 100,000 words. Bullshit. No, it's a novel because you write a novel.
That
So-
was actually a dictate from traditional publishing.
It was, well, true.
So
And we don't have to do that shit anymore.
no, we don't.
So-
And I love that the shorter novels and the novellas have become a thing, and
Yes.
that people are willing to write short.
Yes.
And I wish there was more of a market for the short stories, which is why we're doing the
That's
anthology.
anthology.
We're doing them.
Because I think there is a market for it, obviously, because they're selling.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And I think, and the short story is writing a good short story is a lost art.
It's a
It is not a
storytelling skill.
lost art. It was a dying art, and we are
Okay.
doing our best to re-inject
Well, you know
life
what?
into
I
it.
think
yes.
it just went off wandering in the jungle because it could not find a home. And then we invented Raconteur Press.
Yes.
And now short stories are finding homes again, and lots of other people are doing them too. So
This is true.
Adopt a book.
we found lost, wandering short stories, and we gathered them all together around the fire.
Give a story a home.
And that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah,
and we've
yes,
been
it
at this
is.
for an hour.
It's
Yes, we
time
have.
to
It's
wrap
It's
it up.
amazing. We had no idea what we're going to talk about. And we do this all the time. So
I-
this
I-
happens in the shop. We'll be sitting here and we'll be talking to you like, I really need to go home and make dinner.
Yep.
I need to go buy window food because I don't make dinner. She goes home and makes dinner. I don't
Yeah.
have time
I'm
to
not
do that
making
stuff.
dinner tonight. I'm
Good.
going home, heating leftovers up, and falling into bed.
You should go
You should do
rest.
that. Yes.
Because
we
we're all pretty tired still.
We started with it being our six months and
6 months.
talked about odd jobs and chickens and
Chickens.
and off we go into storytelling. So this was a wonderful
We had the chicken
little
tangent.
ramble. Because of Texas's
Yes.
obsession with giant.
Giant cocks.
It's Texas. Everything's bigger
How
in
are you going to
Texas.
title this one?
Everything's bigger in Texas.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Next week. So-